This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Let's face it, life after service ain't always easy. Far too many veterans continue to struggle in silence. But you don't have to fight this battle alone, because we are here to help. This ain't no group therapy. It's the after party to the battle. Full speed ahead, after battle. Real talk, real stories, no BS. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is another wonderful Monday evening here in Texas. It is September the 8th. My apologies. It's been a long day, guys. I've been sitting in the garage, and if you've ever tried to cut crown molding with angles of 66.5 degrees and all that, it is never a fun thing to do. Don't get me wrong. I love working out in the garage and doing those kinds of things, and it relaxes me. But today, it just got to me, and my brain is all over the place. So forgive me for that. But second episode of Full Speed Ahead After Battle, and as always, I am your host, Josh McCabe. We got the kinks out of the way last week. We had a few sound issues, but with our fearless leader H, we got those solved. So we should be rocking and rolling this week. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know about y'all, but in Texas, they are, our governor is actually vetoing laws that are supposed to be helping veterans. Now, I, for one, have never partake in any of these substances that do help our veterans. A lot of people have said that it's great things, HB3, stuff like that. There's a lot of good stuff out there. And if you know anything about the VA, all they do is, in my experience, push all these pills onto you and make you take all these pills and drain you and make you a zombie, and it does not help whatsoever. So, with these laws, at least in Texas, as far as I can speak of, they're going well, I would say. And so hopefully there is some relief on the way for our veterans here in Texas. Not only that, I'm sure everybody in the United States is aware this week we have September 11th Remembrance. That is this Thursday. A lot of people decided to join the military because of what happened on that fateful day. I, for one, knew I was going to join well before 9/11. That was not a deciding factor for me, but I know it's for some people. And if you joined because of that, great. Our military needs everybody. And so, as far as my VFW here next to Hazlet, Texas, we're technically in Fort Worth, however, close to Hazlet, 287. We are doing a remembrance ceremony after our meeting on Thursday, 8 o'clock. So if you want to stop by, 13825 U.S. Highway 287 south, just off the 5 Points in Hazlitt, Texas. You're welcome to join us for that. Do a little ceremony. But without that, we have a great guest this week. This lady came recommended by someone else. It's going to be a future guest on our show. I was talking to this other person, and they said, "Hey, I've got a veteran counterpart that does what I do, but she was in the military. She's a VSO. So for those of you that are looking for some VSO tips, veteran service officer tips, this lady's going to be able to help you out, I believe. Granted, they all work on their different ways in the different counties, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But she's also doing great things with a nonprofit. She's helping a lot of veterans with physical disabilities that are getting mobile, getting athletic, and they're doing some great things. So, without that, this leads us into our interview of the week.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Rita, welcome to Full Speed Ahead. How are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing great. I could be better. It's been a rough day for me, but more importantly, how are you doing?
Pretty
Doing
good. I'm
good?
glad to be here with you guys tonight.
Well, we're glad to have you. So let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Where you been? Where are you from? All that good stuff.
Yep. So, like you started to say, I'm a veteran service officer. That's my full-time job. I live here in Randolph County, North Carolina. So, if anybody knows the furniture market, that's where we're at. I was in the Air Force from '05 to '08. I joined between my junior and senior year of high school, and then I graduated early so I could go to boot camp in February. Because those of you who are in Texas know that you don't want to be in boot camp in July because it's awful. So I went in February so I could graduate by April. And then from there, I was stationed out in Port Hueneme, California for a little while with the Seabees because the Air Force does not have their own vehicle maintenance school. And then after that, I was at McGuire, New Jersey for a few years. And then unfortunately developed some health issues, got med boarded. My family moved to North Carolina while I was in boot camp. So when I got back, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to North Carolina. And so I ended up here. And I know we're going to talk about like that transitional period, but for a little while,
Yeah.
didn't know what I wanted to do. And then after going to school and kind of trying to find my way in the world, got married, have a 15-year-old daughter, and now I'm a veteran service officer because I feel like my service time got cut short. So this is my new way to serve.
Okay. So you're one of those that are still serving after you even got out. So,
Oh, yeah.
first of all, thank you. There's a lot of veterans that get out and they struggle, and some of them find that new mission in life, that new passion, and their calling is helping those other veterans. And that's what we're here for. Helping them so they don't make the same mistakes. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's funny that you said you didn't want to go in July down here in Texas. Well, I actually went to boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois, outside of Chicago, January, February time, and that was freezing. Back then, when I went, early 2000s, they were in the old ships and busted windows and concrete heating, and it was miserable through the winter time. And yeah, the heat down here during the summertime is quite something else. So I don't blame you on
Yeah, especially with Black Flag days. I was like, no,
that one.
I'm good. I'm gonna miss that one. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you said you mentioned you worked with the Seabees. I think everybody knows the Seabees. They build stuff, and my uncle was part of the Seabees back in the Vietnam era. So Seabees are a great group of people. Hopefully, being Air Force, you're able to help them out with I don't know, hotel reservations, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No. Good. Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you. I have a feeling that we're going to have a lot to talk about it, as far as your military experience, VSO. I'm excited to talk about that because a lot of people don't know about VSOs, right? Or they don't have some good ones. So first off, let's go back to your transition from the Air Force into the civilian. You know, what did that look like for you? Were you planning to get out, or is it kind of you know, they made the decision for you? You know,
Yeah.
how did that all go down?
Yeah. So they made the decision for me. There's a lot of still speculation why we have a lot of young, healthy, new to the military people that are developing these major health conditions early on. And so they've seen this influx of young people with heart conditions. And so I wasn't in very long before they're like, you need a pacemaker. And I was like, didn't have a heart problem before. So got the pacemaker. Thankfully, the being vehicle maintenance, there was still a lot of stuff I could do. And the guys were like, well, let's just throw you behind the desk and let you do that side so you don't have to get out. And then when it came time for us to deploy, they were like, well, you're non-deployable. You got to go. So I went through the med board process, actually flew back to Texas, begged the med board to find another spot for me because I'm like, this was 20-year plan. Like, I don't have a plan B. Like, plan A was excellent. 20 years, and then you get out and you become an ROTC instructor, you retire at 60, and then you're an artist because you're just drawing checks. Like, so I had this great plan, and then it gets cut short. And I did not know what to do with myself. Like I said, I had this great plan. And so it's like, now I need to change everything. And then with a pacemaker, there's so many things now I can't do on cars. You can't lean over a battery. So you're doing, you know, timing and alternators and all that. So it looked very different. And so I went ahead and I used my voc rehab and GI Bill so I could get my degree. Got a master's degree in psychology and was like, well, I'll apply to the VA so I can work with other veterans. And you know what the VA really doesn't like to hire is veterans.
I know. Trust me, I know.
And so, you know, I went through this process of back and forth. What do I do with my life? You know, worked with my mom for a little while, training service dogs. She's a dog groomer, so we partnered up on that. And while I loved it, it wasn't what I wanted to do. You know, working with dogs is great, and I love my 3, but I wanted to be more involved in the community. So I went to the Register of Deeds to pick up my marriage license for something, and I was like, what is veteran services? So I stopped by the office because it was in the same building, and got talking to the girl at the front desk who was also Air Force. We became friends, and a job posted a few months later, and she's like, you need to apply for this job. And then I ended up getting on with the county, and I've been there ever since. And they're not going to get rid of me until my 20 years are up.
Well, I'm glad because I know the county veteran service officers, those are some great people if we find the ones that are willing to do the work. I know there's some great ones out there, just like the VA. There's some people out there that are just collecting a paycheck. I know here in White County, Texas, we have some great ones. We have a couple that I work with. They're helping me with my disability. So, you know, I think, you know, you, from what I know of you so far, landing in that spot, great. So, couple of questions, real quick. Going back into your transition, can you maybe expand a little bit on the pacemaker and how that came about and how that has affected you with you know your civilian life, maybe the mental health issues that or awareness that goes along with that?
Yeah. So transition was hard because when you're med boarded, you go through this whole different process. Now, let's be honest. We all know that TAPS kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But when you're med boarded, it's a whole different ball game. You basically like you go, you talk to the med board, and then they make their decision, and then you know here's a DAV guy, and then okay, well here's your 214, and there was nothing else, and so I was like, okay, well, now I've got to replan my life. What do I do? And so at first, I didn't know I wanted to go to school because I'm like, well, I just spent 12 years in school. Like, I don't want to go back. And so I was like, well, I still want to see the world. I'll go be a flight attendant. Well, I can't pass an FAA physical with a pacemaker. And I was like, well, I still want to deal with Homeland Security in some way, shape, or form. I know that the benefits are good, the healthcare is good. Like I've got this solid plan. I'll go work for TSA. Can't be near X-ray equipment. So I'm like, okay, well, there's job number 2 out the door. And so job number 3 was, well, I'll go work with the police department. I wanted to do K9 was my number 2 plan in the Air Force. We all know how hard that was to get into. And I'm like, well, I'll go do that with the police department. I can't pass a physical for the police department. So I kept hitting these brick walls, and it was very difficult because now it's like, well, what do I do? And at that point in time, I did not know about all these wonderful jobs that were out there that, they don't talk about on career day. Because if somebody told me in high school, well, if you don't join the military, go to trade school, I would have went to trade school. Because my husband went to school for 18 months and I went to school for 6 years. And I'm going to tell you, somebody else makes a lot more money than I do. You're talking about cutting those angles. And I'm like, I know exactly what he's talking about. So they don't tell you these things. When I graduated in, '06, the big push was college. And like, that sounded really good, but everybody went to college and now you don't have plumbers.
Right.
And so it was like, what do I do? And like I said, with my mom being a dog groomer, like I fell back into that because it was something I knew. I grew up with. My mom's been showing dogs my whole life. So it was an easy thing for me to go back to, but it wasn't what I really wanted. So that's why I decided to go to school to try and go into mental health myself, because I knew what I struggled with. And then on top of that, having a baby, like postpartum depression is real on top of already having depression, and then having all these physical limitations. So it just kept compounding on each other. And I struggled with it for quite some time. I thankfully, my daughter saved my life. Like if it wasn't for her, I would probably not be here, because I had nothing else. Like the rug was just completely torn out from underneath me. But thankfully, I had her, and it changed everything, because now it's like, well, I have this thing to live for. And it made it so it was like, okay, what is plan B? Well, plan B didn't work. Okay, well, let's plan C. Like, let's just keep going until we figure it out. And thankfully I did. It took a little while, but that's why I ended up doing what I'm doing, because now I'm like, okay, you got out. I don't want this person to struggle with the same thing I struggled with, because I didn't know VSOs were a thing. Like, I went through the claims process myself, and it was awful. If I had known what VSOs were, I would have been knocking on their door. But they're like the government's best kept secret. Okay, the federal government does not want you to know that there are these free people out here that will literally are paid to fight for you to get free money. Like, and I equate it to the federal government is drying their hand while this one's still soapy, because the two are just keep fighting each other. But your VSOs are so important, because they're the ones that learn that navigation process, because doing it on your own is hard. And yes, there's a lot of great information on Google, but it doesn't always mean it's accurate.
Right. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. When working with the VSO here, they're like, okay, they know the tricks that the VA is looking for, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you go into that CMP exam, they're going to tell you, your VSO is going to coach you just like you're going into any other interview. They're
Oh
going to
yeah.
coach you for that, and we're going to get more into that here in just a few minutes. One thing I want to touch on real quick before we go to our first break is, you said, and I think a lot of people relate to this, that your daughter kept you around, right? You strove for your daughter. And for the longest time, I felt the same way, right? Coming out of the service, like, you know, uh, I need to keep going because I need to show my daughter that it's possible. You can change your life. You can, stop one thing and go into something else, and you can make some. And now, if it wasn't for my wife now, and I tell everybody this 100%, if it wasn't for my wife now, I would not be here. So I know exactly where you're coming from, Rita. Real quick, let's take a quick break. We're going to watch a little video, and then when we come back, we're going to get into some questions on your VSO. So if your viewers are listening in, throw those questions in the chat. Maybe she can help you out. Maybe she can't. We'll kind of discuss the difference between, veteran VSOs in different counties, states, cetera, et cetera. But we'll see what we can do to help you out. So we'll be right back, y'all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket trembling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land under the fray, and the home of the brave? Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight you in the name of the brave. We are the USAF. For those unaware, that flag is still there. It's our future to save. This land of the brave, the USAF. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, in the home of the
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.net.
All right, and we are back with Lisa Honeycutt. I tell you what, there are so many good versions of that song out there. However, I will never find a better one. I think that Jimmy's rendition, Jimi Hendrix and the guitar, I think his riffs on that song is amazing. So, all right, so let's get back into. Looks like Rita, real quick, you have a fan, Jaden says y'all are doing great for the local vets. So that's a great job there, Rita. So let's get into. I guess we need to throw a little disclaimer out there. BSOs, different counties, y'all run by different rules, different things. So, what's the disclaimer you want to give out real quick before we get into discussions?
So it's kind of like a therapist. If you don't find a good one, go look for another one. There, I'm not going to name no names, but there are some VSOs that are not so great out there. And like, yeah, okay, so I'm the one on here, right? But like, I got into this because of a good VSO. And then I got mentored by an even better VSO. So, like I said, it's kind of like a therapist. Just find a good one. And sometimes, you've got your county VSOs, and then you have VSOs through the American Legion and the DAV and the VFW, even the Marine Corps League. So just keep looking till you find a good one. I say all that. Don't go to an attorney. So the attorney does the same thing that I do. It's just they charge you for it. So your tax dollars paid my salary. So why would you pay for me to do this service and then go pay an attorney to do the same service that you already paid for? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with attorneys. It's just that they don't specialize in this, right? So like an attorney might see some VSO claims type stuff, but then they're also doing, divorce law or wills or all these different things. So they're not specialized in it. The only thing I do is work with veterans, and that specialized field.
Right. Yeah. So y'all have access to the VA systems or
Yeah.
some of that, right? So you get to see the information and the stuff that's in there. And so that's another reason why you should go to the VSOs, because you can help track those claims and everything that's going on and work with them. Yeah, because recently I had no idea about VSOs until recently. And somebody at my VFW is like, yeah, go check out Wise County. They're really good. And she's like, okay, this is what you need. This is what you're going to do. This is your CMP exam. This is what you're going to say 3 times or more. So VSOs, like Rita just said, this is all that they do, people. They sit here, they help veterans all day long. A lot of them are veterans themselves. They've been there, they've been through it. So let's get into the VSO job. I mean, so what do you have to say as far as the job? Like, what advice would you give? Let me ask you this: veterans coming out of the service, when should they start contacting a VSO?
Before you even get out.
Okay.
Because so you can do something, it's called a BDD claim. So it's benefits at discharge deliveries, or maybe those words are backwards. We just use acronyms all the time. So sometimes they get blurred. But you can file your claim before you even get out of the military. So that way, the last day of your paycheck, well, your disability starts the next day. And so if you can come see us before you even get out, I highly recommend it. If not, within that first year is crucial, because if you get out, as long as you file a claim within that first year, it will retro back to the date of discharge.
Okay.
So make sure you file within that first year and go to the doctor. Like, it's so hard because, like, I guess I say I'm the tail end. I'm the tail end of that suck it up generation, right? So
Yeah.
we did not go to sick call until we were dying. Like in my case, literally dying. So like I remember falling off an obstacle and smashing my knee, and my drill instructor looked at me and he was like, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm gonna keep going." But you don't go to sick call because you're like, I don't want to be a wuss.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but sometimes it's important. Like you have to go if you've been seriously injured, because in your 20s you're like, I'm invincible. Well, about to be 40, I'm not invincible anymore. And so, do it while you're young, because you're going to regret it if you don't do it later. I have so many veterans now that were Vietnam era, and they're just now filing claims, and it's so hard to prove. Like, if you were in Vietnam and exposed to Agent Orange, it's one thing. But if you hurt your back, like it's not easy for me to prove. So you've got to go through a much more detailed process, and it's doable. It's a bigger battle. So if you can do it in that first year, that's crucial. And then making sure you get an accurate diagnosis, because like we can be kind of vague in our job descriptions, and I can put in, right knee condition, But when the VA goes to look at your medical records, they're going to be like, well, what is the condition? So just make sure you're getting things documented, diagnosed, and follow up with treatment. Because if they don't see you've had continuity of care, they're going to be like, oh, well, you're better now.
Yeah.
We know that's not the case. And like we had it a few weeks ago, the gentleman I work with, I wanted to laugh so hard, but I was trying to be quiet while he's on the phone, and he's doing a higher level review. And the lady was like arguing with him. Well, he doesn't have, continuity of care for his headaches. And he straight up asked her, he's like, so every day when you wake up and you have a headache, you go to the doctor? And she was like, well, no. And he's like, why do you think veterans would go to the doctor every day? But
Yeah, I
like,
know that. I know that.
make yourselves like notes, keep a headache log or a journal. If you do go to the VA for healthcare, which the healthcare side, I have to say, is pretty good. We've had huge leaps and bounds on that side. Send your doctor a message through the va.gov app, because then at least it's documented somewhere.
Yeah, the VA, I will give them this. They've come a long way on their apps or trying to contact them. I know recently I was trying to contact them after this recent head injury and trying to get into them. I was having zero luck, right? And I had to actually go through the suicide hotline on the veteran side to actually get the appointment in there. So if for those out there that don't know, that is another way to get that set up. It's the veteran crisis line, not the regular national crisis line, number 2 for veterans. And then you can get in there, and those people actually have the access to schedule or help schedule those appointments and get that in there. So back to the VSO. You mentioned a lot of our Vietnam veterans are having struggles with, trying to get their help and everything. So if they're going into trying to get this done, right, that file to intent, that isn't, or intent to file, that is important to complete, correct? So do you want to speak on that a little bit, just for the people that don't know what that means?
Yeah, so you can do an intent to file if you don't know what you want to file. It gives you 1 year from the date you file it to go ahead and get that completed. Now, if you know when you walk into my office, like, this is what I want to do, then that's what we're going to do. And we don't have to do that intent to file. But if you're not sure yet, I highly recommend it, because it's like a placeholder in line. It's kind of like when you call the cable company and you're waiting on hold and they're like, would you like us to call you back? It's just like that. It's just holding your place. So I highly recommend doing that if you can. And if you know, though, just walk in the door. You're gonna, if possible, any records you have are gonna be helpful. Year 214 is the big one. I've had veterans that are like, I don't know where it is. And I'm like, that thing is more important than your birth certificate. Like, you need to find it. And, there's options going through like National Archives, trying to get it through the VA, trying to get it through your branch of service. But when you get out, all Register of Deeds have the option. You can take it and put it on file with your Register of Deeds. And that way, there's a copy somewhere always. I did that, and then I took a copy to my mom's house, and then I took a copy to my friend's house, and then I took a copy to my house, and then I have a copy in a security deposit box at the bank, because that way there's one always, because you just never know. And then any records you have. And so when I say records, your service treatment records, your military personnel files, pictures, letters. I have one gentleman that his records were burned up in the fire. We can't find anything, but I've got photos of him in a field hospital in Korea. And I've got letters between him and his mom when he was in that hospital. And that is my proof that I can use to fight the VA to get him service connected for things. So stuff like that, keep a hold of.
Yeah, that's definitely important, because I know there's a couple of guys in our VFW that helps. They're not VSOs, but they've been through the system enough that they know what's going on. So they're tracking, or they're helping other older veterans with, they got a medal for this time. Well, that in that medal statement, it says overseas action or whatever. And so that fits, as far as the VFW. But like Rita said, keep track. So if you twisted your ankle and you feel like, oh, I don't want to go, it's going to heal up, go, because you don't know down the road that that's not going to turn into something more than just a thing. So those little aches and pains in your 20s, like she said, when you turn 40 and 50, they're going to start combining, and it's going to get worse and worse. And you want to make sure that those are in your record, because because it's going to be so much easier to get that done than versus going 20 years after service trying to say, well, I hurt my back on the ship. Well, they have no records. And now you got to fight that whole process. So, all right, it is. We're going to take a couple of quick seconds here in just a second. But as far as the VSO side of things, is there any other? Uh, let me ask you this: the longest time I quit going to the VA because uh, they would not help me in the way that I needed. Right? They're like, okay, well, we're going to send you to the outside doctor to get this done. Well, when you go to the outside doctor, they tell you, well, I got to get you this equipment for the surgery, but you have to go back through the VA to get this. And then the VA is like, well, we don't have this. So yada, yada. I quit going to the VA because it was just a runaround. And so luckily, my job has very good insurance, and I started seeing private doctors. How does the private doctors or those type of doctors outside of the VA fit into this whole situation?
Yeah. So it, you've got the good and the bad, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
like everything. So I've got some really good doctors on the outside, and I've got some really good doctors through the VA. Now, because I am 100% service connected, all of my healthcare is through the VA. So I don't carry the county insurance because I'm not going to pay the money for something I already have.
Right.
But they will send you to community care. But for veterans that are going through that process, if you've got a good primary care doctor on the outside, I would keep them while you're going through this process. As long as you go to the VA at least once a year for a physical, it kind of keeps your foot in the door. But the
Right.
other thing is if you need a doctor to write something called a nexus statement, you're going to want that private doctor. So there's this lovely little directive that the VA doesn't like to admit that they have that says
Uh-oh.
that says if you're a VA provider, you can write a nexus statement on behalf of your veteran. However, there is concerns that is this a conflict of interest? And then even deeper than that, some of these doctors are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. Like, oh, if I help too many veterans, like, am I going to get fired? And so your private doctor has the ability to do that for you. So what I tell my veterans to do is like, let's do a FOIA request, which is the Freedom of Information Act, get you a copy of all your records, take those records to your regular civilian doctor, tell them to look at them and say, do you think that this problem I'm having now could have been caused by this injury back then?
Yeah.
My Marines, I have yet to meet a single Marine whose back and knees are not completely screwed up. Like it's just their life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I'll have a doctor write, due to carrying an 80-pound rucksack through the deserts of Afghanistan, yes, this veteran has this back problem. A VA doctor can't write that.
Right.
They can, but they can't, kind of thing, right? But then your civilian doctor might be able to, which is what's going to get you service connected.
Right.
So there's pros and cons to both, and it just depends on your situation. If your foot's already in the door and you're getting your benefits and you don't need it, that's fine. And like I said, I've had really good luck. Kernersville healthcare system for the VA is amazing. Um, I equate it to like a shopping mall for doctors. Like it's literally a 3-story huge building. You walk in the front door and it has everything. Now, Salisbury, which is just south of us, is haunted by the ghost of veterans past. Um, but it's set up like a college campus. So if you have to park at the parking garage at building 1, but your appointment's at building 26, like you better hope that the shuttles are running because there's no way you're going to make it all the way over there. Um, but it just depends on you as an individual and what you need. And those are the times where I say sit down and talk to your VSO, because even though we don't work for the healthcare side, we kind of understand the ins and outs just enough to get you in the right direction, and usually to the person that does.
Awesome. Yeah, I know when I started my private doctor, I walked in with a box of medical records, and they looked at me like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm here. I'm not going to the VA anymore. Luckily, I found a good doctor in my community that's willing to help with all that and tie it all back to service related stuff. So yes, definitely keep all those records. Keep your private doctor. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back with Rita, we are going to wrap up our show tonight, and we're going to talk about this amazing nonprofit that she is getting up and going with some friends and cohorts of hers. So we'll be right back.
Been home about 6 months now, and I still have my doubts. Well, I'm not sure how I got here or how I'm gonna get out. Well, my mama says I look the same as I did before I left. But if she could see inside of me, it would scare her to death. Well, I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun, and I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" And I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, God, and weighed a ton. And I see death in every single thought. Well, they taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it off. Last Saturday they honored us in a small parade downtown. And when they shot off those fireworks, I nearly hit the ground. And while they smiled and cheered for us, all I could do was stare. 'Cause part of me is here at home, but part of me's back there. Well, I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun, and I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" And I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, God, and weighed a ton. And I see death in every single thought. They taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it on. Yeah, there's no end in sight. 'Cause even though I'm home now, I'm still fighting for my life. Well, I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun, and I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" And I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, God, and weighed a ton. And I see death in every single thought. Well, they taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it off. Well, the devil's won some battles, and he may win some more. But don't he know the American soldier will always win the war?
All right, welcome back to Full Speed Ahead After Battle here on MBR Talk. And as we were just talking about documenting all those wounds, all those injuries, everything, I think that song right there kind of wraps that all up into a nice little bow. Before we left for break, we were talking about VSO, the do's and don'ts with Rita. She is a VSO person out where she is, so she's got some great tips there. However, let's go talk about the nonprofit side about this now, because I think like a lot of veterans, when we get out, we're trying to find that new mission. We're trying to find that path forward. We're trying to find that way to serve, right? We got to keep going forward. Otherwise, we're going to fall in that trap of despair and poor me. And that's when things start going south. And that's what we're here for, is to not let that happen. There are so many veteran groups out there, VFWs, American Legions, the Reverend Warriors. There's so many out there. Find one to get involved in. If you don't find the right one, create one. And I think that's what Rita has done. She's created her own nonprofit. So, Rita, you want to introduce that to the people?
Yeah. So I've got two Katies in my life, right? So I call her the OG Katie, and she's the one that's kind of kept me on my path in life. And she supported me through all of this craziness in my life, and she's seen me through the mental health side and what I needed from that side. And then about 2 years ago, I call her Fitness Katie. Was the other Katie in my life, and so I literally was driving past her workout studio, and I saw all these women out front doing all these crazy exercises, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of people. Let's go check it out. And so I pull over and I was like, hey, I'm just curious, like, what are you guys doing? I'm trying to get back in shape. It's real easy when you're in the military to stay in shape because you have no choice. And then you get out and you're like, well, I still want to eat 6,000 calories a day, but I don't want to work out anymore because nobody's yelling at me to. And so she kind of got me back on my health journey of where I needed to be fitness wise. And so I started working out with her and doing all these things. And she's like, well, I really want to do something with veterans. And so we came up with some adaptability things that we were starting to work through. And so it just kind of exploded from there. And I'm like, we need to take these two worlds with the two important people that I've met through these journeys in my life and see what I can do to hit best of both worlds. So for me, I handle the mental health side and Katie handles the physical side. And so that was what Thrive Fit, or so she's got Thrive Fitness, and we came up with Thrive RC Veterans. So mental health first aid for me is crucial. Like, you can go talk to a therapist until you're blue in the face. And I mean, I did on Thursday, I needed to. However, the best support you can get in your community is from each other. And so mental health first aid teaches the everyday person how to be that support person, what to say when somebody is going through a crisis or a challenge, how to recognize signs and symptoms, all of those different things. So Thrive started with the hope of marrying these two worlds together. So all of the money we raise goes to help pay for mental health first aid classes to county employees, the police department, first responders, and everyday residents. I've had so many times where spouses come in and they're like, I don't know what to say to my husband or my wife, and they were military. And I'm like, I've got a class for you. Like, come on, because if I can give you this tool, it's kind of like CPR and first aid. Do you need a Band-Aid or do you need a tourniquet for the brain? It's the same kind of concept. So the whole point of the class is to just give you the tools to get you to the professional. And sometimes the professional might not be the person you think that it is. It might be that you need like a faith-based leader, or, you just might need a therapist. You might need a psychiatrist. It depends on what you need. And so that was step one of the Thrive. And so step two is, okay, mental health is great, but what's going to keep you mentally strong? And for me, it was physical exercise. The more that I was able to start doing, the better I felt every day. And so like today, I am so sore because we had a huge competition this weekend, but it is the best sore I've ever felt, because I'm like, I did this thing that less than 1% of the world does. And I did it because of the adaptability training we started implementing. And so now we're in the process of moving the gym to an even bigger space so we can do wheelchair adaptability training. We went to something called the DECA. It was the DECA Fit. And so what it is it's 10 exercises and 3 miles. And we did it as partners the first time. And there was this little old lady out there in a wheelchair, and she kicked our butts. And I'm like, how did this 60-year-old woman just like crush me? But she did. And it was because she did not let whatever happened to her stop her. And so that was the whole point of Katie's Thrive Fitness, is that she's all about what can we do to keep you mobile? Because like right now, like my poor mom needs both of her knees replaced, and they're talking about back surgery, and she's not even 60. And I'm like, if I don't start taking care of this stuff now, like I'm not far behind her. I have fallen off of horses. I rock climb, I kayak, I do all these crazy things to easily injure myself. My mom did demolition derby, so like she purposely crashed cars. But we all have our thing. And so I'm like, I want to stay as mobile as long as I can.
Yeah.
And so Katie has worked really hard with me to get me back to being as mobile as I want it to be. And so I went from barely able to walk a 5K in an hour and a half to I'm training for my second marathon in a couple of weeks. And that was within a 2-year span. And I'm like, I never thought that this was doable. And then when I went to my first marathon, it just blew my mind, the people that were out there. There was one young gentleman, and I kept looking, but I couldn't really see him through the crowd. And I'm like, something just kind of looked like, hey, look at me. He was blind. And so he had a guide person that he was running with. So when people are like, oh, I can't work out, I'm like, this kid just ran 26 miles and he can't see. So yes, you can work out. It's just you've got to modify it. You've got to find the ways to do those things. So that's why we started Thrive, for the opportunity to get people into those environments in a positive way. And it wasn't just veterans, it's for everybody, because those two things are so important. Last year they pulled our numbers in our county. We had 17 suicides. 11 of them were veterans, but I know for a fact one of them was a friend of mine. It was her 13-year-old son. Like, no 13-year-old should ever feel the way that this poor kid did. And so now, like, her and I work together through the Thrive nonprofit, trying to spread the word about, bullying, being kind to each other, and then peers recognizing the signs and symptoms. Because now, like, our kids are attached to this thing. Like, if it's not a phone, they don't know how to survive. And they're not going to come talk to us. I'm very fortunate that, like, my 15-year-old will talk to me about just about anything. There's some things where she's still like, well, your mom, but she will come to my husband and I about anything. But most kids don't feel like that. They don't feel like they can talk to their parents about certain things. So, like, in this case, they had a really positive relationship. He was just getting bullied so much. And I'm like, kids don't realize how cruel they can be. And then on top of that, like, when I was in high school, if you didn't like somebody, you got into a fight, you both got in trouble, and it was over. Now the bullying follows you home because they can contact you through their Chromebooks or their phones, all these different ways. So we're trying to get the word out there, teaching mental health first aid, youth mental health first aid, and then how to kind of keep yourself positive without all of these different things. When I sat down with my therapist on Thursday, she's like, we're done with the drugs. I'm taking you off these medications because they're just making you a zombie, and that's not good for you. She's like, you're going to come talk to me more. I'm sorry, you got to see me. And I'm like, no, I think that's maybe what I need. And it's what I needed. I needed human interaction, which was so hard for us during COVID, right? Like, you're not allowed to see each other. And so we had so many older people dying by suicide during COVID because they were so isolated. And so now it's like, no, we need that human interaction. We need those tools. We need those resources. And we need to find a way to have a positive outlet. Like, my daughter does fencing. She used to do karate. And sometimes you need to punch something. I mean, pick the thing that's safe to punch.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I hate to be that grumpy old veteran, but I don't like being in public, right? I don't like being around the people. I would rather stay at home with my family and the few select friends that I have, right? Because I know who they are. I know I can count on them, and we can talk about whatever it is. But again, we do need that interaction with other people, and that's what those other veteran groups like Thrive and WFW and other groups are out there for, is so you can be around the people that have been through the same things that you have been. They've experienced the things that you've experienced, right? That's why we don't like going to therapy, because you're going to tell somebody all your problems, and they have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I think, I had that up there, but Thrive RC Veterans on Facebook, I believe that's where y'all have it now, right? That
Yes.
y'all can contact it through Facebook right now. So if you're in that area, check them out. Archdale, North Carolina. They're doing great. I think, the counterpart of that, fitness, I think that is something else that is important in the veteran world. We do need to stay active, because it's when we become sediment and we start sitting on the couch and drinking and not doing anything, that's where that depression sets in. That's where the weight gain sets in. And a lot of that is what becomes that veteran suicide, unfortunately, is not getting out there and meeting people and doing things. So reach out to those groups, reach out and get active. You know, more groups are becoming family active, right? So you can bring your family out to some of these events and make it a family 5K, 10K. And, you know, going back to kind of what we talked about before the show, Rita, again, the grumpy veteran thing, when I first joined the civilian world, people would call into work with, I got a headache. I can't come in today. Well, guess what? My whole body aches. I take a handful of medication to wake up in the morning. I'm still here. So
Yeah.
don't tell me you have a headache. Anyways, no. Uh, everybody's got their own pains, right? And that's understandable. And over the years, I've tried to open my eyes and I've changed my viewpoints on a lot of things. Everybody experiences different pains. And to them, you know, if it's a headache, that's the most important pain they have that day. That doesn't mean that they're not as bad as my back pain, right? So I've changed my way of thinking on a lot of that. And again, it's to my wife. She's helped out with a lot of that. We have just a couple of minutes left. I'm going to give it over to you, Rita, to close it out. Anything you want to say as far as BSO or Thrive or just a veteran in general? I'll let you wrap
Yes.
it up for a couple seconds.
So, and so you're saying about wanting to be home. And so that's like, not only is it the mental health side, but it's the veteran side in general, right? So one of the things that I sometimes I sit there and I go, I'm just fighting this battle alone. And when I say this battle, I mean the battle for my veterans, getting them the stuff that they need from the VA, right? So, you know, we're always saying, oh, well, we need more VSOs. Well, you know who can get us more VSOs? Our veterans calling our leadership and saying, guys, we need more of these people. So it's crazy because like in the military, you're a team. You're constantly a team. And then we get out, we go into these silos. And I'm like, I need y'all to stop doing that. We need to be pounding down everybody's door. So like everybody's like, well, I don't want to call my congressman. It's not going to make a difference. Okay, well, if you are one person, it might not. But once there's 20 of you, like he's tired of hearing from us, he's going to do something because he don't want to hear from us anymore. And so I always tell my veterans, I'm like, come out and do things. And even if you want to do things like by yourself, right? So we have a food pantry at my office. Well, you and your wife can come put some stuff away in the food pantry. You don't got to talk to anybody else, but you're still helping how many other veterans just by spending 30 minutes of your time. So we need to get back out of that mindset of, well, what about me? Like, well, what about you? It used to be, what about your platoon? What about your flight? What about your battalion? We need to get out of that. We need to go back to the way we thought in the military of taking care of each other. Like, it's going to sound like crazy and stupid, but it's even the same like when we do our mud runs. One of my girls that we did a mud run with was like, I can't do this. I need to go back. And I said, well, it's just bless her heart. So she's a civilian. I was like, well, you don't get to go back because we leave no man behind. And so bless her, I dragged her through the next 3 miles of this mud run. But she was like, I see what you're saying now. Like you would not leave me behind. And now I just accomplished this thing. Imagine if all of us had that same mindset again of leave no man behind. We got to keep dragging each other to the finish line because, like, I don't want to say the government kind of forgets about us, but they kind of do, right? So everybody is in this thought process of, well, we fight for the freedoms. No, we're not freedom fighters anymore. Like the American Revolution's over, but we are the peacekeepers. That is our job, is to keep the peace worldwide. Well, we need to keep doing that once we get home. And so, like, don't forget about us, but then don't forget about each other. You know, so many times I hear veterans that are like, well, I've got this going on. Dude, I get it. I do understand. But if you've got that going on, how much of a difference do you think it would make for you to sit down and talk to somebody else who's also got that going on? Could you be battle buddies like we used to be? And could you help each other? And so that's my biggest thing is I'm just trying to convince my veterans, you got to go back to the old way of thinking because we were so much more successful when we were doing that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. You know, when we join, we go through boot camp and it's about teamwork. You get to the ship or CVs or platoon or wherever, it's about teamwork. And just because you're out of the service and you're not with your group of people anymore doesn't mean that you're alone. right? There's so many groups out there. There's people out there that will talk to you one-on-one. There's podcasts, there's blogs, there's everything. You do not have to fight this battle alone, and that's what we're here for. So, with that, Rita, I thank you for joining us. Stick around for just a couple minutes, and we'll wrap up. But, ladies and gentlemen, that does another episode of Full Speed Ahead After Battle. Real quick, I know, like we just said, it takes a team. I know there's a veteran out there that's struggling lately, and I know she's going through a lot of times. But my mother, she served back in the late 70s. She was out in El Paso. She was a medic. Her father, my grandfather, just passed away. So she's struggling lately. So I hooked her up with the Bowling Green, or working on hooking her up with the Bowling Green VFW auxiliary up there. So hopefully, like we said, we find that teamwork that helps her out in her time of need. So love you, Mom. Can't wait to see you again. For all you viewers out there, if you're just now tuning in, don't worry. We'll be back next week, Monday, 7 Central. If you haven't yet, make sure you like the show, you follow the show, you subscribe on YouTube, comment, do all that good stuff. No, I'm not asking you to do it to make me famous or make me rich, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be here. I'm not looking to get rich or famous off this. I'm looking to help our veterans out. And we're talking about that teamwork. There's still 22 veterans committing suicide every day, and even every podcast, blog, whatever that pops up, it's still happening. So the more and more people out here talking about it, the more you're checking on your buddies, your brothers, your sisters, your family, everybody. Check on them, not just on the 22nd, but every day. And like I just said, remember, you're not in this alone. All right, we're here for you. Reach out. I'll see you next week. Full Speed Ahead After Battle.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.